Hey y'all, real quick, just wanted to let everyone know we just hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and I just could not be more thankful or more appreciative to see that happen. The main thing I'm trying to do here is build a community of people from all different backgrounds, but who all care about the law and care about the truth and want to have interesting discussions about some of these high-profile cases. And so far so good. I've really enjoyed meeting all these new people that have been down in the comment section, and I just hope y'all stick around to see us hit 10,000 or 100,000 or who knows, even 1,000,000 subscribers one day. Because y'all know when that happens, you'll be able to say you were here from the beginning. But once again, really, I do mean it. Thank you all so much for being here. All I ask is that you just enjoy the content. Now let's get into the video. Well folks, as y'all know by now, this channel has become the headquarters for Team Tory and Tory Lanez defenders. And in the last video, we launched a successful offensive strike on Team Meg by absolutely nuking one of Team Meg's biggest defenders, that being Anthony Fantano. And when there was nothing left but smoking remains, I asked you, the good viewers, who you wanted to see me do that to next. To which the names I saw more than any other, Abba and Preach. So that's what we're doing in today's video. I'm going to be watching Abba and Preach's video on the Tory Lanez case and just doing what I do best, which is destroy it with facts and evidence. And trust me, you're definitely going to want to watch this one all the way through to the end. What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z Attorney, and I currently work as an assistant district attorney in North Carolina, meaning I'm a criminal law guy, I'm in courtrooms all day every day, and I make videos on this channel talking about high profile court cases, and really just trying to pull the curtain back to show y'all what's really going on with them. And lately I've been 10 toes down on Team Tory, making videos about the Tory Lanez case, and so if you like that kind of content, then be sure to drop a like to let me know to make more videos on this case. And if you like this kind of content generally, then subscribe to come back for more. Most importantly, I want to see y'all down in the comments again. Let me know what y'all think about Abba and Preach's video, and also just anything about the case you want me to know. But yeah, enough yapping, let's get into this video. Well folks, here we have it. This is Abba and Preach and their video examining all of Tory Lanez's new evidence and why it doesn't look good. I don't know much about them. I know they are Team Meg, supportive of Meg's side. I know this is Abba and this is Preach. And beyond that, all I can say is I'm going to watch this at 1.5 times speed. And I'm glad to see it is a little longer, 33 minutes. Hopefully we're going to get into some details, get into the weeds of this case, because that's where cases are won and lost, is in the weeds. So I'm hoping that is what we're going to do with this one. But yeah, let's just jump right into this thing.
Tory Lanez.
Tory Lanez.
Apparently some new evidence has come out, and people think that Tory Lanez should be freed. Now listen, I did the Diddy stuff last night.
You did the Diddy stuff?
Take that. Baby, tell me if you like. All right. Research.
Hey, yo!
Research for the project. With this one here, I decided to take a look at the evidence, so I stayed up all night just reading up on everything. So they have a website. It's called 36 something. It's what Tory Lanez's team released. Tory Lanez charged with 3 crimes. I think one of them involves a weapons charge, discharge.
All right, just while we're here on this point, I do want to highlight this. Assault with a firearm. That was the main crime Tory was convicted of. That's the crime that gave him the most time in jail. And I'm highlighting that because assault is a specific intent crime, meaning in order for Tory to have been found guilty of assault with a firearm, the jury had to find beyond a reasonable doubt that he intentionally had the gun, intentionally fired the gun, and was intentionally aiming it at Meg in a way that he was trying to hit her. All of that is part of what would need to be proven here to prove assault with a firearm. Specific intent. Not that there was a scuffle and the gun accidentally went off. Not that we don't really know who had it. It had to be Tory had the gun and he intentionally shot it and intentionally was trying to hit Meg. So let's keep that in mind as we watch the rest of this video. This idea of specific intent is the standard for assault.
Using a weapon recklessly. Essentially, he was accused of firing a weapon and hit Megan in the foot. Megan Thee Stallion, who's a famous artist. They pressed charges, sent him to jail. There's a lot of controversy involved because some people believe that Tory's innocent. He's being railroaded for a variety of reasons. But regardless, he was convicted. He got 10 years in prison to do. At this point, Tory Lanez has already filed a few appeals. Every one of them has been rejected. Now they come out with this website just last week. Everyone's covering it because they feel like this evidence may exonerate him or at the very least merit a new trial. Guys, this is going to be a bit boring. The reason why is they're counting on you guys. No, they're counting on you guys to not look into the details, and they're counting on you guys to never pay attention or to do any research. That's what they're counting on. Actually, I'll put a link.
Okay, so far, really just a recap of getting us to where we are today with the case, so nothing really objectionable there, except for that last statement stating that Tory's Team Tory, is counting on you to not do your research, to not look into the details, and because that's the only way you could be on Team Tory is basically if you're ignorant to the facts. Obviously, I'm going to take a strong objection to that. I'm going to disagree strongly with that because I'm someone who has dug into the details, dug into the weeds of this case, and I happen to believe that Tory should have been found not guilty, and now he deserves a pardon. So I would argue the exact opposite of what he's saying is that the more you know about this case, the more you should be on Team Tory. That's what I would say when he's saying the more you know, the more you Team Meg. But although I will say I do appreciate linking the actual exhibits from the case. He's inviting people to see what actually happened at the trial, which is a big plus for me because a lot can be said on social media and by people who don't really know what they're talking about. What really matters here is what happened at the trial because the evidence that was brought into the courtroom, the evidence that was presented to the jury, That is what matters when we're talking about why the jury voted the way that they did. And so yes, I do give them credit here for inviting people to actually look at the evidence for themselves, because that is really the most important part of this entire case.
Link in the description below. If you want, there's a website that actually compiled every single exhibit from the trial. We'll go through the big claims. Just a couple things I need to get out of the way really early on. From my reading, nothing that's been presented so far is new. Not a thing. I know people claim it is, bombshell, recordings, all this stuff. Either it's been presented in trial or it's been presented on appeal. I think there's three things.
No, that's not correct at all. At the very least, we've got Bradley James and his affidavit he's sworn to, where he stated, he was Kelsey's bodyguard, and he has stated that he overheard Kelsey state that she was the one who shot Meg and not Tory. So that, in and of itself, that is new evidence, and that's something that we need to consider and weigh the credibility of what he said. Yeah, when it comes to the other evidence, yeah, I'll concede the grounds that a lot of what we're talking about, a lot of what we're hearing, is stuff that came out at the trial and did come out on appeal. And so in that sense, it is true to say there's not a lot of new evidence. However, that's not really important, because what we're arguing for is for a pardon. And a pardon does not require that there be new evidence. A pardon just requires the chief executive, the governor of the state, look at the totality of the circumstances, look at all the facts of the case, and determine, in the interest of justice, what is the most fair thing to do. If we're talking about overturning this case on appeal, that's a different legal argument, because it'd have to be either an issue of law or the fact finders, the jury, had to have made a clearly erroneous finding of fact. Those are difficult standards to meet, and I'm not really going to dive into them in this video, because my main argument, the thing I'm advocating for, is a pardon, not overturning on appeal, not a new trial. And in pardon world, yes, the new evidence is important, but also the evidence from the trial and from the appeals is also incredibly important. So anyone trying to raise this idea that, well, there's nothing new, all this came out at trial, so we shouldn't even consider it because the case is over and done with. No, that's not how this works.
Things that are being alleged in Tory Lanez's website that I think are key. 1, Megan was never shot by any bullet fragments. 2, key evidence has gone missing. And 3, if she was shot, the person who did it was likely Kelsey. Was Megan the...
So yeah, okay, appreciate the roadmap. They've laid out the 3 main points that we're going to be talking about here. I can see, was she shot? This is the famous glass argument. Did she step on glass? Was she shot? We'll see what they say about that. We've got evidence mishandling, and then who does the evidence actually point to that did the shooting? So yeah, it's a good framework. Let's dive into it. Starting off with the famous glass argument.
The Stallion shot? That's the big question that a lot of people are asking. Even during the trial in 2022, Tory's defense team never made the claim that she was not shot. All they alleged during that trial was that Kelsey was the shooter, not Tory Lanez. It is only 3 years later, now that they're releasing this new information to the public, that they're now claiming Megan was not shot. A lot of people believe that she was never shot, and it's for a variety of reasons, but the 3 main things that I've seen so far is that Megan lied, and she said at first that...
So how did that happen to you? Glass where?
People were like, well...
And that's true. Yeah, we have to consider that. We have to consider what they were saying the night of. Granted, of course, the explanations have been given since then, that she didn't want police coming in guns blazing on the belief that she had just been shot, and she's telling them, oh my gosh, I just got shot, because the police are going to treat that as a potentially deadly situation. So that was her explanation for the night of. But we still have to consider that she did say that and say she stepped on glass, and that's why her feet were bleeding.
And they saw the body cam. Oh, she's lying. Okay. This part of the evidence, I don't give a shit about. And the reason why is when someone gets shot, I don't care what they claim or what anyone else claims. I want to see medical reports. I want to see where the bullet fragments are. I want to see everything. That's the only thing that matters. Because I could shoot you right now. You could claim you didn't get shot. It doesn't change the fact that you got shot. So the only thing that matters to me in this case is their medical report. So I get...
And I actually agree with that as well. He's right. If you're talking about a shooting victim, victim of GSW, gunshot wound, then the most important thing by far is going to be the medical testimony and what do the medical records say. And so if you can see, he's about to get into the medical records, which I appreciate, because that's where the core of this debate is going to be. And I'll say right now, y'all know I'm 10 toes down Team Tory. I'm saying this up front. I don't think the glass argument is very convincing from Team Tory, arguing that Meg stepped on glass, she wasn't shot. I just don't think it's that convincing. I think there's enough medical evidence, medical testimony to prove that she was in fact shot. Maybe she also stepped on glass, because both things could be true. But I think the more we dig down and dig our heels in on the glass argument, the more we're giving away our credibility when it comes to the other stronger arguments in regards to things like the DNA evidence and why Kelsey was not tested, or DNA was not tested on the gun, and Bradley James' testimony now, his statement now, that he overheard Kelsey shooting. We've got a lot stronger arguments that if we let Team Meg, because this is what they're trying to do here. This is why I'm bringing this up. Team Meg would love to have this entire debate about this case on something like the glass argument, because they're just going to continue to post the medical records and just show, oh, look, the surgeon removed bullet fragments, and what you're going to say, all these doctors were lying, it's a big conspiracy. They would love to fight us on that ground. And if we let them, then they're going to beat us. I'm saying we need to reframe their arguments and fight on our turf, on our territory, the best arguments that we've got, which is going to be the DNA, Bradley James' testimony, the inconsistency of Meg's statements, the inconsistency of Kelsey's statements, the fact that she lied when she said she saw Tory shoot Meg, and she admitted to lying about that. There's so much more better ground for us to argue on. I don't want to see us get bogged down on the glass argument. So I'm probably not going to have too much to say about Abba and Preach, what they're saying here. I'll call something out if it's egregious or misrepresentation, but my feeling, they're just about to go through the medical records and basically show, yes, she was shot.
I take a look, and Tory's team did cover this. I look into this, and what do I find? 3 surgeons performed surgery on both her feet and removed 3.
Now, let's keep in mind, Lee Haruno, he was the one who actually testified at the trial, and his testimony was that there were bullet fragments, and surgery had to be performed to remove those fragments.
Bullet fragments. One of them ended up testifying in the court case and then provided paperwork so that everyone could see what had happened and what had been recovered. So I see this, I'm like, okay, this looks like an open and shut case. Not for Tory's team. They put up this graph, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm not even going to tell you what they said. You're going to just read it. They have this slide here with the image of 3 different doctors, and this is what they say. They go, despite these conflicting reports, 24, 25, 26, none of these doctors were called to testify to court. What's going on? So the first doctor described injuries on Megan Thee Stallion as lacerations from broken glass. There's no mention of gunshot wounds, fragments, or ballistic trauma. He also described Megan as pleasant in no acute.
So this is the strongest evidence that Team Tory can provide to regarding the glass argument, and showing that, hey, look, we've got a doctor who looked at her feet, looked at her injuries, and did not report any sort of gunshot wound, any bullet fragments, anything like that. Certainly, that's not nothing. However, we got to look at the circumstances, look at the context here. This doctor was the ER doctor. He's the trauma doctor who did the initial intake on Meg, which, remember, at that point, it was the night of. Her story that night was she stepped on glass. So when you're in the ER, yeah, she gets taken in, and she's got these wounds on her feet. The doctor, what he's going to rely on a lot, very heavily rely on, is what is the patient telling me? And if she comes in and she tells him, I stepped on glass, and he looks at her feet and sees cuts that are consistent with stepping on glass, then yeah, he's just going to type it up, stepped on glass, move on, send her to the next doctor. So that kind of explains, I think, why the ER doctor would say that and not mention bullets.
Distress. You can't really see the medical report, okay? Because I don't know why, but when you go on the image, it's too small. So they don't let you actually see it. If you zoom far enough, you can actually read it. And this is just the ER doctor. So he's the one who first assesses Megan when she comes in. And I think what they're trying to allege with this image is that there's no mention of gunshot wounds. And they think, I guess, that is a smoking gun of some sort, or something to be careful of. What they omit in this is that she was hit by ricochet. And what ricochet does is it impacts the bullet to such a severe degree that when it penetrates, sometimes it can look like lacerations because of its jagged edges. So what may have looked like lacerations to him may have been very well bullet fragments that he just couldn't see. Again, when you come into the ER, they're not doing every test off the top. If they think that something's wrong, they send you to a different doctor, which is what happened. Because if you look at the dates, what's the date here?
July 12th, 2020.
Okay, the next doctor saw her when?
July 12th, 2020.
Okay, so now the second doctor comes in. Who is this? Milton Little. He's the orthopedic surgeon. She was shot in the foot. Now the surgeon comes in. What does he say? Diagnosed with bilateral gunshot wounds based on imaging. He removed 3 small fragments under general anesthesia and called the wounds superficial. They put the quotation marks. Yet performed surgery. Claimed fragments were bagged and given to police.
And this is going to be the medical testimony that is the most important from Milton Little. And you could see earlier in the report that Lee Haruno, he was part of Milton Little's team that did the surgery. So he's the one that's saying, look, we did imaging, we saw fragments, we performed surgery to remove them, and identified them as bilateral gunshot wounds, removed the fragments, bagged them, gave them to the police. So this testimony is going to be the most important, the most credible as far as what actually happened, because he's the one who actually did the surgery.
So the way that they're framing this is that he performed surgery on gunshot wounds that were superficial. So I guess they're trying to say it's kind of odd that he claims these wounds are superficial, but they performed surgery, not realizing it's not abnormal for doctors to perform surgery on superficial wounds. Sometimes they need closing, sometimes they need specific treatment, especially if there's things that they need to go surgically remove, they'll still perform a small surgery, which is what they did for Megan. Then we have the third doctor, Anna Howell. When did she see the patient?
July 13th, 2020.
Which is the day after. Now what she says, she described the wounds as superficial and cleanly closed. X-ray showed no fractures, minimal residual shrapnel. Dr. Howell treated for cellulitis, which is an infection, discharged without mention of ballistic trauma. So they look at these 3 reports and essentially say, look at these guys. This is suspicious, isn't it? You got 3 doctors who saw her. Most of them don't mention any kind of ballistic wounds. It's inconsistent and they didn't testify.
No, it's not. It's not.
Go ahead.
It's not. That's not how nothing this works. Like you said, the first one saw it. It'd be like, well, what I see under surface is that. That's no test, no echo, no x-rays, no nothing. Just based on what you see. You have to understand that doctors, they treat symptoms. He's going to ask the person, what happened? Oh, it's glass. He's going to look at the foot and be like, okay, well, there is lacerations.
And I'm glad they got the picture here, because this is the other part that I'm arguing. And even though I'm Team Tory, when you look at these wounds, it's hard to conclude that this is the result of stepping on glass, because if you stepped on glass, I would expect to see wounds on the bottom of your foot, not kind of going up the side of your foot. And so, not to say that there's not wounds on the bottom of her foot, but we have to find a way to explain these. And when you combine the location of the injury, combine it with the x-rays that show fragments, combine with the surgeon's testimony, it's too much evidence to, I think, poke enough reasonable doubt into it to say, well, no, she only stepped on glass. There were no bullet fragments whatsoever. But like I've said, though, we don't need our case to pardon him, to free him, does not rely on Meg stepping on glass. It just relies on Kelsey being the one who had the gun and Tory trying to wrestle the gun away from her. And that testimony as being corroborated by all the witnesses who were present. Because in that sequence of events, automatically there, you cannot get to beyond reasonable doubt that Tory intentionally had the gun, intentionally shot the gun, and intentionally tried to hit Meg with the gun. So that's the standard to find him guilty. We don't need to prove that, oh, she stepped on glass to find that. We just need to prove, well, at least poke enough reasonable doubt as to who actually had the gun, which I think is easily established with all the rest of the evidence in this case. So once again, I'm trying to get us on Team Tory. Let's not get bogged down on the glass argument. Let's, we can throw our little things out there about, well, the doctors may be a little inconsistent, and we see video of her stepping on glass. Now, I will say that about Abman Preach. Interesting that they're not showing that video. We do have body cam video of Meg stepping out of the car, and before she does, a bottle falls out, and then she steps right where that bottle fell. And that certainly seems to suggest, that's why I'm saying it's absolutely possible that she could have stepped on some glass. But two things can be true at once. She could have stepped on the glass, and she could have been shot.
So they're telling me they stepped on glass. It's glass. Next doctor. X-rays. Ooh, what is that? No, you have some glass in there. Well, it's not glass because we would see through it. It's more opaque. It's weird. Let me just go. We're going to have to operate to remove that because we don't want any more lacerations on the muscle tissues or nerves or anything like that. Open up. Boom. It's not glass. It's sharp. No. Dude's going to be like, I remove some fragments. Bop, bop, bop. Close it up. This and that. The next day, another doctor's going to come to be able to do like a follow-up on what happened on the surgery. I've been in the hospital too much.
When I saw this, I was really confused because you can tell by the way they're framing the whole image that they're trying to allude to some kind of medical malpractice. Turns out they got exhibits from the court case that you can see. Okay, tell me what this is.
This is a foot. With
Megan's foot.
Fragment in it.
And yeah, I mean, now I'm no x-ray technician. I don't know exactly how glass would show up on an x-ray versus bullets, but I have to imagine, right, glass is going to be more clear. It's not going to show up as this solid. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Y'all comment down below if I am, if you know more about x-rays than I do. But I would imagine if you got something that is that solid, because look, even the bones have some, opacity to them. But opacity, whatever. Y'all know what word I'm saying. But the fragments absolutely do not. They're solid. So whatever they are, they're super solid.
So this is the next page, okay? They go forensic red flags and medical doubt. I'm watching how they're framing the page. And they go key medical findings. They go radiology report. No radiopack foreign bodies. No bullet fragments clearly visible on X-ray 27. And then they put this little excerpt of a text of imaging. So I get confused when I read this, right? Because I'm like, well, which X-ray are they talking about? Is this the WRECKS X-ray that was done after surgery or before? If you don't know what radiopack means, it means metal stuff. It shows up on an X-ray. So they're trying to claim there was nothing on the X-ray that looks like bullet fragments. So I'm confused because I can see the X-ray of her foot. It's clear that she's got bullet fragments. So which X-ray are they referencing? They don't make it clear. Why do I think they're doing this? I think they're referencing the X-ray that happened the next day where the bullet fragments were removed. Because if you look at that one, that X-ray is not going to show because they already did surgery. It's gone.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. And that's something that Team Tory should have made clear what X-ray they're referring to. In fact, they didn't. Does seem to suggest some levels of misleading and manipulation going on. I'm still waiting, though, for them to show the video of Meg stepping out where the bottle fell and address that, though.
Evidence was never presented at trial. Tory Lanez's original trial counsel joined the case late, limiting the defense's ability to investigate these medical inconsistencies. What they're essentially alluding to is that Megan was never shot. Cool. How do you explain 3 surgeons doing surgery on her and saying that they removed bullet fragments? Are you saying surgeons making $500,000 a year who spent their whole life in medical school and now this is their full-time career are out here lying and conspiring, all 3 of them, okay, against Tory Lanez, that they're faking bullet fragments that they removed from Megan and then handing it to the LAPD? Is that your claim? Because if it is, that's fine. Where's the evidence? Not a single ounce is provided in here. And these doctors, they put their names on the medical report. You can read it. If a doctor makes this up, as these guys are trying to allege, you have to understand the medical malpractice lawsuit that they could be looking at, the potential jail time, the loss of their license. They're looking at millions and millions of dollars worth of losses. They never brought this up on appeal. Want to know why? Because any judge would laugh this off their fucking docket. If you thought this was medical malpractice, that's a big deal. Bring that evidence in front of a judge. But let's look at the next big.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think it's actually a pretty good point that the level of steps that would have to be here to fulfill this conspiracy, it is far-fetched. And that's why I'm going to keep repeating it. Don't die on this hill. Let's point out our little things. Like, let's raise the video, which they did not address, I see, because they're moving on to the next segment. Let's raise the video of the door opening, the bottle falling out, and Meg stepping where the bottle fell. Let's raise that video. Let's raise the, there's a little bit of inconsistency between the doctors. But at the end of the day, though, they're just going to keep throwing these medical reports back in our face and showing things like this x-ray, which is just very compelling, showing that, no, she was shot, and we got a surgeon that's saying so, we got an x-ray showing so. So all we can do is point out the little things there, but like I'm urging people. I've seen the comments, trust me, I've seen the comments, and y'all seem to be thinking, y'all are fans of the glass argument. I'm saying, I don't think it's a very strong argument. Don't get sucked into it, because they would love to fight the entire fight on things like the glass argument, because they know they've got some good evidence, some good receipts to prove it. Don't let them suck you into that. Suck them into our territory. Let's force them to talk about the DNA, force them to talk about Bradley James, force them to talk about the inconsistent statements from Meg and Kelsey. Because yeah, we have such stronger arguments, so much more evidence to back up what we're saying, and those. Let's suck them into our territory. Don't get sucked into their territory.
Was evidence fabricated or disappeared against Tory Lanez? There's a claim that says right here, fragments went missing. So I looked into this claim, and essentially what they're alleging is that an LAPD officer in a preliminary hearing said that we don't know where the fragments are. They have the transcripts here. It's a very short excerpt. They don't include everything, but they have it here. You can just see it's 3 lines. They go, now the bullet fragments, which were allegedly removed from Megan's ankle, they can be located, correct?
This is something to consider, absolutely. In a pretrial hearing, if the detective on the case is saying, yeah, we can't locate the fragments, that's important, but I will give them credit in pointing out we do need context clues, what was said before and what was said after. That'd be helpful to know. But at the very least, this is something that does warrant more investigation into was evidence mishandled. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the evidence and see what they say.
Correct. That's what the detective says. They can't find the bullet fragments. The detective says like he can't locate them. Okay. Did you ask him they can with some time or why it is? I don't see that anywhere. Property officer to say, hey, when your detective says you can't find key evidence, where's that? I'm looking for anything that would serve as follow-up to show me that there's malpractice or there's something suspicious. They don't do anything. If they didn't bring it up at trial, when did they bring it up? They bring it up on appeal. I go find the document, and this is what he says. Therefore, petitioner does not have access to the firearm to conduct his own fingerprint and DNA analysis. Right now, he's petitioning to say like, hey, I deserve a new trial because I can't get access to this.
Yeah, and that's an odd statement to make, saying we don't have access to the gun. Because, right, their DNA expert did have access to the gun to do DNA analysis for the trial. Now, maybe they're referencing specifically to appeal, since there are new lawyers on appeal, and the appellate lawyers are saying, hey, we want access to the gun to do some more testing, and now the gun can't be found. That could be true, and so maybe if that's true, maybe Avon Preach, they're being a little dishonest here, saying that, well, what do you mean they say they can't find the gun? They admit they had it because they did DNA testing on it. Well, yeah, maybe at the trial level, but we're on a new level now. We're on the appeal level with new lawyers, and these new lawyers may have never had access to the gun or the fragments. So that could be what they just said could be true. Yeah, both things can be true here. They could say we don't have access to it now.
Fingerprint and DNA analysis. Right now, he's petitioning to say,
and the trial lawyers did have access to it. Both of those things can be true here.
Like, hey, I deserve a new trial because I can't get access to this firearm or the bullet fragments because the LAPD lost it. That's what he's saying. That's what Tory Lanez's team is saying. Likewise, the bullet fragments were not produced as evidence and cannot be located as they were not preserved. So I'm like, whoa, that's huge. And another part of this exact same appeal goes, petitioner cannot file any claim of innocence as he's unable to conduct further testing since the firearm and bullet fragments are missing. Now, this was sent to the Attorney General of California when they went on this appeal. They're saying, yo, there's some malpractice. LAPD is not keeping charge of this stuff. How can I prove my innocence when key evidence has gone missing? The LAPD responds, I, Martin Preciado, do hereby declare as follows. I am a senior property officer at the Los Angeles Department Evidence and Property Management Division. In that capacity, I have received a request from Detective Abe Hart for property booked in connection with case that relates to Daystar Peterson, which is Tory Lanez. As a result of the request, on October 30th, 2024, information management system, that query showed that Evidence and Property Management Division has the firearm magazine, and all the bullet casings and all the bullet fragments that were booked under this case number are still in Los Angeles Police Department custody.
Now, this is an important piece of evidence because, right, what we saw earlier was the detective saying, well, we don't know. We don't know if we have the fragments. We don't know where they are. And that is important, but the next step is going to be, well, let's ask an evidence custodian, an evidence tech, whose their full-time job is the preservation of evidence and maintenance of the evidence locker. And that's what this guy is. He's a senior property officer. His job is maintaining and preserving evidence. And so he has filed a declaration, this is sworn under oath, that he looked in the system and found the system showed that the firearm, the magazine, and all the bullet casings and fragments are still in LAPD custody. Now, this is important because this is him swearing that he did investigation, and through his investigation, he concluded that they still have it. I will point out one thing, though. All he did here apparently was a query. He looked into the computer system and looked up the case, and from his looking into that, saw that apparently the system said, we still have all this in our custody. But I think for something like this, I think we need to do a little bit more than that. We need to do a little more than just a simple Google search, effectively. Actually go into the evidence locker. You say you still got it. It should be easy. Go into the evidence locker and actually go get it. Pull it out and show us. Like, and attach a photo. Why not? Like, it seems like this is a very easy thing to disprove what Team Tory is saying. If they're saying evidence has gone missing, it's been mishandled. Very simple. Go in the evidence locker, take a picture of it, be like, no, it's right here. So that's why we have to be careful as Team Tory. We can't get too sucked into this argument, because if this is true, that it is just sitting there in the evidence locker, the more and more fuss and noise we make about, oh, it's been mishandled, it's gone missing, it's going to make it hurt a lot more, sting a lot more if they just go in and just pull it out. So we have to be careful about getting too invested into this argument, because they can disprove it in 2 seconds. Now, why they haven't disproven it yet, that is questionable, but I have a hard time believing that an evidence tech has sworn under penalty of perjury and basically at the cost of his job if he's wrong, that they still have it. So once again, just another argument we can't get too bogged down on. We need to, raise our objections, raise our points that we're making about, well, why don't you actually produce it instead of just telling us it's there? Why don't you show us? Just leave it at that and move on to the better arguments for us.
So the Attorney General responds to the appeal, and he says, petitioner fails to provide reasonable, available documentary evidence to support his factual assertions. His failure to do so is especially troubling because his factual assertion that the firearm, the casing, the bullets, and the fragments are missing is contradicted by what the attached declaration from Martin says, which averts that his query of the computer system for the LAPD shows that the LAPD still has custody of the firearm magazine, as well as the casings. So the Attorney General says, get this shit out of my face. They say they still got it, so what are you yapping about?
What they say?
Well, let's still keep in mind, though, yeah, they can say a lot of things. Just because they say they got it doesn't necessarily mean they got it. I'm just a fan here of just show, don't tell. Show us that you got it. Don't just tell us you got it.
They say they still got it. 3 years later, now Tory Lanez team is coming out and trying to claim that there's something suspicious that happened with the firearm or with the bullet fragments. But it's weird because during the trial, their own DNA expert was able to test the firearm and exclude Tory Lanez's DNA from the magazine itself.
Well, just keep in mind, it's new lawyers. It's a new legal team. Law firms can specialize in different things. There's some law firms that specialize in trial work, and other law firms that specialize in appellate work that will review what happened at a trial and try and get stuff overturned on appeal. So yeah, it's two different legal teams. So that both things can be true at once, that Tory's trial team had access to this stuff, and his appellate team currently does not have access to it. So he's trying to make a big point about that. Like, well, they already had it. Well, maybe not. We can't exactly say that for certain.
You're talking about Tory Lanez's team. Who is it? This is not the Tories. That's some people he runs with.
I don't know.
Because it don't look very.
This is what everyone's talking about.
Tory-ish. I understand what you're saying that everybody's talking about. I heard it too. But who is this team that's putting this website together?
I mean, the team is not always attorneys. It could be PR people. It could be bloggers you hire. It could be all kinds of people. Right?
Gotcha.
I think the last question is, if you guys believe that Megan was shot, and then if you do believe that the evidence shows that there was a shooting in place, to whom does the evidence point to as the shooter? And this is where I think the Tory Lanez defense is probably its strongest.
Okay, good for Abba. He's giving credit where credit is due. The same way, look, I think we're actually more similar than we are different in covering this case, because I give credit where credit is due to Team Meg in arguing about the glass argument and the evidence mishandling. I think that's like I'm saying, it's not our strongest arguments by any means. This is our strongest argument, and he's recognizing that, because I think he's trying to be fair in evaluating this case. I think he's still wrong in his conclusion. Still think Team Tory is the way to go, but he is giving credit where credit is due, saying this is Team Tory's strongest argument, and let's see why he thinks that.
Is Megan Thee Stallion a credible witness? No. Is she a credible victim? No. Is Kelsey Harris, who's the other person involved in this trio, credible? No. Problem is, Tory Lanez also lied. At some points, he claimed that Kelsey Harris, had never shot Megan. On trial, his lawyer said Kelsey Harris is the only person who could have shot Megan. Someone said people say...
Okay, we can go down the rabbit hole all we want about Tory Lanez's credibility, but he's not a witness. Yes, he was a witness to the events of the case, but he's not a witness in the sense that he did not testify and provide eyewitness testimony at the trial. So his credibility is not in question here. But compare that to Meg and Kelsey, who did testify. Now, y'all have heard me say on this channel before, anytime a witness testifies, their credibility is at the center of the case, because now the jury has to weigh whether or not what they're saying is reliable and credible, and you determine that based on a whole different variety of factors. But that's why it's ultra important to examine the credibility of Meg and Kelsey and look at their statements and how their statements have changed over time. How Kelsey admitted to lying when she said she saw Tory shooting Meg, and she lied in that interview to corroborate, or lied in that interview to protect herself, is what she said. Or the fact that Meg was lying about sleeping with Tory. She initially denied it in her interview with Gayle King, and then later said no, she was, and now she continues to deny to this day that she was ever fighting with Kelsey. even though the injuries on Kelsey, she was scratched and clawed and she had hair missing. Like that's consistent with a woman fighting her. So Kelsey and Meg's credibility, that's what we need to question here. But it sounds like we're about to go down a rabbit hole going through all of Tory's statements to call into question Tory's credibility. Where's the analysis on Meg and Kelsey's credibility?
Kelsey shot her. Tory Lanez replies, that's not true. Best believe this exhibit showed up in court. If you're accused of a crime, stay off your phone, stay off social media. All of these people are liars. So then you have to look at all the evidence around it and say, what does the circumstantial evidence point to? I went through all the
Well, it's not enough to just say, well, everyone's a liar. There's gradations to the amount of lying that's going on and how important it is when a certain person is lying. Well, let's take for this case, if Sean Kelly, as the neighbor, the witness who saw what happened, if he's caught lying, okay, that's not really super ultra important because he is not involved in the case. He doesn't know these people. It is what it is, and his testimony is kind of crazy anyway. But we're talking about the main victim in the case, the one who squarely is sitting there accusing Tory of shooting her. If she's the one that's caught lying, that's incredibly important. That is the most important thing for us to consider. And the fact that we're not getting any analysis here on Meg's credibility and the inconsistencies that she's been doing, the fact that Meg's team is lying in the form of photoshopping text messages that was a trial exhibit from when Kelsey texted Meg's bodyguard and said, help, 911, Tory shot Meg. That was the trial exhibit. Those three messages, help, 911, Tory shot Meg. But when you look at Meg's PowerPoint and what her legal team put together, it was help, 911, Tory shot Meg, and handled me. They photoshopped it to include an entire extra message. So I agree. We need to talk about honesty and we need to talk about the credibility of these people. But let's be honest and assess whose credibility matters more. You can't just say, well, everyone's lying, so we can't really talk about it at all.
witness testimony. I went through the stuff that Tory Lanez's team posted. I went through whatever Megan posted, and then I went through court documents. Based on all the testimony provided by the defense and the prosecution, only 2 people could have been near the gun or could have been the potential shooters. Even the new statements made by some of the witnesses that Tory's put forth post-trial, even they assert that only 2 people were near the gun when they were going.
Yeah, and I agree. But guess what? Remember, all the way back to the beginning, to prove this crime, we have to prove specific intent, that Tory had specific intent to possess the gun and to fire the gun and fire it at Meg with the intent to hit her. If we're talking about 2 people being near the gun, talking about 2 people wrestling over the gun, yeah, you can say Tory was on the gun, but how in the world are we saying that beyond a reasonable doubt that Tory did what he was accused of doing? No. So even by your own kind of conclusion here, by looking at all the statements, all the testimony, you're acknowledging that you can't prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Going on. And the 2 people are Tory Lanez and Kelsey Harris. This is not my opinion. This is what they're all saying, including the evidence, right? Because if you look, GSR, those 2 are the only ones who have it.
Yep.
That means GSR is, I think, gunshot residue?
Yeah.
It's short range. You have to be fairly close to the firearm, essentially, to be able to say that that was on you. A lot of Tory Lanez's...
Now, let's keep that in mind. I'm glad you pointed that out because, yes, the gunshot residue was on Tory's hand and it was on Kelsey's hand. Now, let's remember, what is Meg's testimony? Meg's testimony is that she got out of the car, out of the front seat of the car, and she was walking away in front of the car. Next thing she knows, she looks back, she sees Tory, who had climbed into the front seat, leaning out the door of the front seat with a gun, pointing it at her, tells her to dance, bitch, and shoots it at her feet. That was her testimony. According to that story, how in the world are we explaining that Kelsey had gunshot residue on her hand? There is no possible explanation, literally no possible explanation for gunshot residue ending up on Kelsey's hand if what Meg said was true. So automatically we have to conclude the evidence proves that Meg was lying. And so if Meg was lying about Tory intentionally shooting her, already that should be not guilty right on the spot. But let's examine the rest of the evidence. The rest of the stories now are that Kelsey had the gun, she shot the gun, and Tory went and wrestled it away from her. And in doing so, the gun went off 2 more times, and it was those shots that, in all likelihood, are what hit Meg in the feet. Guess what? If that's the series of events of what happened, you can't find Tory guilty of the specific intent crime. That's why I'm harping on this so much, and why I'm frustrated that he's not talking about Meg's inconsistencies with all of her testimony.
His new buzz is coming around the fact that he's bringing his security guard, who was the driver, the 4th person involved in this altercation, as a potential witness going forward. And in his testimony, he says, I saw Tory Lanez tussling with Kelsey Harris for the firearm. So even this new person that they put forward for this case is also putting him beside the firearm. So let's just establish all the facts in regards to who's actually by the gun based off whatever.
Yeah, but he also said it was Kelsey who was shooting first, and Tory went to try and go disarm her. But he also said he didn't really see exactly what happened because he was trying to pull Meg away because Meg was curb stomping Kelsey, which let's never forget that's what happened based on the evidence. Yet Meg continues to deny it, and Team Meg continues to not want to talk about it, or in like Fantano's case, try and just hand wave it away like, oh, no one's denying this. It's like, yeah, no one except your main star witness, Megan Thee Stallion.
Everyone's saying. Then we look at the rest of the testimony, and then we try to see who it points to. So let's start with the witness testimony from someone, bombshell witness, Tory Lanez's team is now talking about a lot. His name is Sean Kelly. There's a recording that the team plays. I'm going to play the recording as they have it. All right, and here we go. This is a testimony. He witnessed the shooting between Megan, Kelsey, and Tory, and this is what he said right after the shooting happened, okay?
Okay, well, we can do the Sean Kelly stuff, but this is another argument that, what I'm saying, I don't think this argument helps either side because he made some statements that helped Team Meg and other statements that helped Team Tory. For example, he said he saw the girls fighting, but then he saw the first shot happened between the girls while they were fighting. So that helps Team Tory. It hurts Team Meg because it shows the shooting started with Tory Lanez out of the picture. He then testified, though, that he saw Tory get out of the car, or saw the short guy get out of the car, and then just start shooting all over the place. So that certainly helps Team Meg and hurts Team Tory. What I'm saying here is, even in and of itself, that testimony has to assume that there were two guns at play because the girls had to have a gun and then Tory had to have his own gun. But that's just not true. There's no evidence to support that claim. So automatically, I don't really buy his testimony as being that credible, which is why my arguments don't really rely on Sean Kelly at all. And so if you see people that are using Sean Kelly to support their arguments, that's probably because they're biased, because he made statements that go both ways. To make an argument to try and rely on him means you are only looking at the statements that help your side and ignore the ones that hurt your side, which definitionally, right, that means you're being biased here. So we'll see. I'm assuming Abba is going to be one of these people that's using the statements he made that hurt Team Tory, because every right to do so because he did make these statements.
Then the gun, and the girl shoots it. So the driver's door's open.
So you see the girl doing the shooting?
I see what appears to be the girl standing here and going and shooting into the car. That's what it looked like to me. But it was dark and I'm above, but then the guy gets out again from the back.
Okay, cuts right there. So we don't know what the fuck he says afterwards, but apparently this is the recording that says, see, the witness says that Kelsey shot, or the woman in this case, shot Megan.
Yeah, but he's also said that it was dark. And he said, and then the guy got out and it cuts there.
Right.
So give me more context.
A lot.
Yeah, because then, right, what he testified at the trial was the guy got out and the guy started shooting, which I'm assuming he has to be about to bring that part up.
People claim that this audio that this man all said, like, oh, the woman shot or whatever, said that this never came out of trial. That's not true. If you guys go to this website and you look at the exhibits, this thing is listed there and it's been there for years. All of these things were exhibits at the trial. And I believe that audio was exhibit 12. So again, go look at the link, do your own research. This is a guy who was called by the defense as a witness, Sean Kelly. Did this come out of trial? Sure enough, this was available at the trial as one of the many exhibits. This is where shit gets crazy. Tory Lanez calls this man onto the stand as a witness, and on the witness stand, this man, Sean Kelly, identifies Tory Lanez as the shooter.
Crazy.
So they end up fucking themselves by bringing this man on board. So this new bombshell witness that everyone's mentioning is actually one of the prime reasons why Tory Lanez ended up found guilty. Because what did he say when he got on the stand? He says he was firing everywhere, but that the flashes he saw originated with the woman. Okay, here we go. Meg Thee Stallion, which is Tory's lawyer, asks Kelly, sir, did you see the shorter guy with the gun in his hand? And Kelly says, yes. And then the prosecutor, who gets to go on redirect, says, how many shots did you see the short guy shoot when you said he was firing everywhere? And Kelly says, 4 or 5 shots. Why is this important? Because based off the recordings of all the surrounding places, there was only 5 shots that were made. Street TV. So according to the star witness for the defense, he claims that Tory Lanez shot 4 or 5 times. This is the same man that everyone's playing the recording of. Okay, so the prosecutor keeps...
Now, let's keep in mind, though, he's saying that he got out and started shooting everywhere, but to shoot those 5 shots in that recording, that's like almost 6 seconds it takes to shoot 5 shots. Like that's a rather slow rate of fire when you're talking about someone who has basically just gone crazy and just starts shooting everywhere. For reference, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, when he shot his shots, it was 4 shots, fired all 4 shots in 3/4 of a second because he had a guy who was right on him, grabbing for his gun. Fuck you! When you're in an emergency situation or you're shooting like a madman, you can shoot that quickly, very quickly. To shoot 5 shots in 6 seconds, that is not evidence of, oh, he just got out and was just shooting everywhere. And also, what was that statement there about had to switch hands? Yeah, some claim that Kelsey and Tory were both shooting during a struggle. Problem is there isn't enough time for a gun to change hands and be fired based off the timing of record shots. All 5 shots most likely came from the same shooter. No, how do you conclude that? No way. There was a pause. Let's play it in regular speed So y'all can hear how long this pause is and see and determine whether you think it's possible for a gun to change hands. Yeah, so that's like a solid 2 or 3 second pause right there, which even then, we're not claiming that the gun changed hands. We're just claiming that Kelsey had it, and then Tory tried to go disarm her, and as he was grabbing her arm and trying to lower it and point it and move it away, the 2 more shots went off. And then after that, then he was able to just disarm her and get the gun and put it in the car. So that, I don't really know what the point is there. I don't know how you're able to conclude saying that, oh, it's impossible that could have changed hands. Well, we're not arguing that it changed hands.
So according to the star witness for the defense, he claims that Tory Lanez shot 4 or 5 times. This is the same man that everyone's playing the recording of. Okay, so the prosecutor keeps talking to Kelly, and he goes, do you recall telling the DA investigator that after the short guy shot the girl fell onto the middle of the road and you could see she was bleeding? Answer, yes, she was bleeding. Question. All right. So the short guy had his arms outstretched. He fired 4 or 5 shots. Afterwards, the girl fell onto the floor and started bleeding. Answer, yes, she was crawling and stumbling across the road. All right. Now, you testified earlier this morning that when the short guy was shooting, yes,
okay,
she was crawling, fired 4 or 5 shots. Afterwards,
it.
bleeding. Investigator that after the short guy...
This type of question from a DA. Do you recall telling the DA investigator that after the short guy shot the girl fell onto the middle of the road? This introduction means, and this is right, speaking as a prosecutor, speaking as a district attorney, if I have to ask a witness about an earlier statement that they made, that means their testimony at the trial is not what I'm expecting them to say. It means, you're right, they're saying something that is not helpful to my case as a prosecutor, and instead I have to remind them of something they said earlier that is helpful. So already we're in sketchy territory. We're on thin ice here because we're in a situation where he's not testifying in a way that you're expecting to as a prosecutor, so you have to try and get him to recall earlier statements that are helpful. And keep in mind too, Abba raised the point that the defense is the side that called Sean Kelly, and then he kind of effed them over. Let's ask ourselves, why didn't the prosecutors call Sean Kelly? If his testimony was going to be so bombshell, going to be so awesome, so amazing, and he was going to squarely identify Tory as the shooter, and he's the only unbiased witness we have in this case, why is the prosecution not calling him to testify? Why did the defense call him to testify, if not for the fact that they might have expected him to say something more helpful towards Team Tory, and then he just switches his story at trial, and now is the one that's implicating Tory. Let's just keep that in mind about why the DAs decided not to call him. And also, right, why they're asking him, trying to get him to recall prior testimony, because his trial testimony is just not reliable, which is why I've been saying this whole time. I don't really care too much about Sean Kelly and his testimony because I just don't think it's helpful to either side.
Now, you testified earlier this morning that when the short guy was shooting at the victim, you saw there was an object in his hand. Is that correct? Yeah. It was obviously something in his hand with the noise and the flashes. And when that object was in his hands, were his arms outstretched? Yes. We go to the next thing. Jaquan Smith.
Yeah, I mean, he made statements that were bad for Tory, but he also made statements that were bad for Meg. That's really all I can say about Sean Kelly.
Who is the bodyguard? He's the person who signed a witness statement and is basically saying, hey man, Tory Lanez wasn't the shooter. Again, here's Tory Lanez's bodyguard, but whatever. The question is raised, why wasn't this guy testifying on behalf of Tory during the trial? Here's what he claims.
Yes, so we'll hear what he claims. I know from my coverage of this case, he was there. He was available, ready, and able to testify. He was in the courthouse, ready to testify. He was just never called. And he says why in the statement, so let's hear why.
In his affidavit, all right? I wanted to present this evidence during Mr. Peterson's trial, but was prevented from doing so as a district attorney was not ready to cross-examine me, and later they did not call me due to the holidays and the court schedule. I believe I should have been allowed to present this evidence at trial. He claims that because they weren't ready to cross-examine him.
Yeah, and it was the
prosecution comes back, it's like, you were unreachable. We tried to reach you so many times and you were hiding. In fact, since the shootings happened, nobody's seen this guy come out publicly, even after the fact. Basically, what the DA said is like, you guys want to put him on the witnesses, that's fine, but before you call him, we need some time, so I need a continuance. A continuance is when you extend court by a little bit of time.
So, no, I'm sorry. That's not how that works. As a DA, you're not entitled to talk to somebody before trial. You can try to talk to them. You can't compel someone to a police interview. If they're not under arrest, then that means they're free to go. They don't have to answer any questions. Even if they are under arrest, they can utilize their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent or the Sixth Amendment right to counsel. I'm sorry, this claim here that because the DA wasn't ready, the DA needed a continuance to get ready. No. Okay, let's play it out. Let's say the DA does get a continuance to prepare for Jaquan Smith's testimony. And they say, okay, Mr. Smith, we'd like you to come in for an interview so we can get an idea of what you're going to testify to. And he says, nah, I'm good. Okay, so what else are you going to do with your extra time on the continuance? There is nothing else you can do. Your entire reason to continue it is to prepare, but there is no preparation to be had because he's denied giving you any information. So all you can do at that point is listen to his testimony at the trial, take good notes about what he's saying, and then try to impeach his credibility, poke holes in his story based on the other testimony, based on the forensic evidence. That's just how this works. So the fact that the DA was not prepared for Jaquan Smith to testify, that is not something that helps Team Meg. That is something that actually severely hurts Team Meg, because that just simply is not a valid excuse to say, well, we weren't ready for him. We weren't ready to cross-examine him. So I don't know why they're raising this as well, he was unreachable. So yeah, of course the DA wasn't going to be ready. Sorry, I'm telling you, as a DA, that's not how that works.
So you have time to talk to the person, do whatever research you need, whatever. Okay. Tory Lanez's team says no continuance. We want the trial to just proceed. And I was like, well, there's no way that's real. And sure enough, I go to read it. This is from Tory Lanez's lawyer. I just want to highlight to the court, Your Honor. On top of that, that's partially why we want Jaquan Smith. He was present at the location, but even without Jaquan Smith, I think Mr. Sean Kelly's testimony and the GSR on Miss Harris handgun that was done by the LEPD is sufficient evidence for a third-party culpability. So,
and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. So while the DA not being ready to cross-examine, that's bad for them. The fact that the defense, Tory Lanez's team, did not call Jaquan Smith to testify, despite the fact that he was in the courthouse, that was absolutely a mistake. That's an unacceptable mistake that Team Tory made. You can see why they did it here. He's saying, well, we got Sean Kelly's testimony. So look at that. They were expecting Sean Kelly to give very favorable testimony to the defense. And so that was completely unexpected, which is why, that it makes sense why the DA didn't call him, because they were like, yeah, he's going to point to the girls being the one doing the shooting. So the defense was expecting Sean Kelly to give good testimony, and the GSR on Kelsey's hand, they expected that to be enough. Now, almost legal malpractice at this point. If you're going to say, oh, I think we have enough, when no, you're talking about someone's freedom. You throw everything you can. Into that trial, because especially when you got a key witness like this, like Jaquan Smith, who was there, who can testify as to what actually happened. Like, that is just so important. That was a huge blunder by Team Tory to not include that.
By the LEPD is sufficient evidence for a third-party culpability. So I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh, because Tory didn't want this trial to go any longer, he said, fuck it, I don't need this witness. Nigga, it's your fault. I'm sorry. If he's not in the original court case, it's only because Tory's team decided not to put him there. And I don't know about y'all, but if I got a star witness, I would extend court as long as possible to make sure they get to testify. So what does that tell me? Probably not that important. Unless you guys can give me a better reason for why you don't get your star witness on the stand, because you don't want to wait a week. What? Your freedom is on the line. You're risking more than a decade in jail, and you're rushing the trial.
You don't trust him. That's the reason you don't trust him.
No, I disagree. I don't think it's that you don't trust him, because look, we have what he's saying now. He's sworn to an affidavit of what he would have said at the trial, so you can trust what he was going to say. And to give some credit, as much credit as I can to Tory's team, the reason they said was because the holidays in the court schedule, and I can see how they might have been worried that if they extended this out with Jaquan Smith's testimony, such that the case was going to go through Christmas and it was going to make the jury have to come back after Christmas and after the New Year's. I can see why that might have pissed off the jury, or why they feared that might have pissed off the jury and made the jury look more badly on Tories and maybe vote guilty when they otherwise might not have. So that's just a game time calculation. We're Monday morning quarterbacking it right now. But I can understand that was the reason they didn't call Jaquan Smith. I still disagree, though. I think you call him, like Abba's saying, your freedom's on the line. You extend it as long as you need to make sure you're not going to jail for 10 years.
He's just not going to be good. I don't trust him to be on that stand and not fuck this shit up. I don't want him to testify.
I don't think that's true.
Yes.
By cross-examination, they're going to find out that he's lying.
So then we go to the next person. This is the new witness that a lot of people say it's a bit of a bombshell. His name is Brandley James, worked for security for Harris, the other suspect. So that's Kelsey Harris. He was not present at the crime scene. He claims that sometime after the incident, he overheard Harris say that she shot twice, and that in a struggle with Tory, 3 more shots rang out. Folks think this is a big deal because it corroborates the pace of the shots that were heard in video recordings of the incident. So they're like, whoa, this is crazy. The thing is, he only made this claim 2 years after the trial ended. And there's no evidence to support the fact that he heard this. And thirdly, it would be considered hearsay.
Okay. Sorry. Let's take those piece by piece. He made 3 points right there. Let's listen to them again. Go bit by bit.
After the trial ended, that were heard in video recordings of the incident. So they're like, whoa, this is crazy. The thing is, he only made this claim 2 years after the trial ended.
Okay. So he didn't come out immediately. 2 points on that. First off, okay, apply that same logic to the Me Too movement and the delayed reporting that goes on with that. And whether or not there's valid reasons why someone might not immediately come forward with information like this. So he's trying to just sweep this away as like, well, he didn't come forward immediately, so how can we trust what he's saying? Well, he explained why he didn't come forward. He actually said it in the very affidavit that I don't know if he's going to read from it, but the affidavit where he is saying he overheard Kelsey admit to shooting Meg, he said he did not come forward because as a celebrity bodyguard, you are trusted to be confidential with your clients, and his livelihood depends on his ability to maintain confidentiality and protect the reputations of the celebrities that he is being a bodyguard for. And so imagine what would have happened to his career if he overhears this, and then the next thing you know, he's running to the media, running to Tory's team, running to the paparazzi, saying, oh, I overheard Kelsey say this. guess what? His career as a bodyguard is effectively over. So he said in his affidavit he did not come forward because he did not want to risk his career and risk his livelihood that his family depends on. So I think it's a perfectly valid explanation as to why a bodyguard might not have come forward immediately, and now has decided to come forward in light of the fact that Tory almost died. He got stabbed 14 times in jail, and he feels somewhat culpable for that, is weighing on his conscience, because he's like, I know what I heard, and I overheard Kelsey admitting to being the one that shot Meg, yet now Tory is in jail serving time for what Kelsey did. And so he didn't come forward at first, but Tory almost dies for something he didn't do, and now he's like, now it's my time to come forward. So that's easily explainable as to why it took so long. And once again, I'll just reiterate, apply that same logic to Me Too. My understanding is ABBA and Preach are somewhat more on the left side of the political spectrum, and so I'm sure our fans of the Me Too movement are the victims of the Me Too movement not mostly defined by people who did not come forward immediately. So yeah, that just seems like a terrible first point. But yeah, what was the second point again?
And there's no evidence to support the fact that he heard this.
Well, no evidence to support the fact that he heard it. What do you want? A video, an audio recording? All we have is what he was saying, which all we can use. Let's take it back to Me Too again. All we have to be able to corroborate something like this is the circumstances and how well you can recall the details of where you heard it, what was said, who was present. And here with Bradley James, in his affidavit, he recalled exactly where they were. They were at a restaurant called Fixin's. It was during the trial. He recalled exactly who was present, and he recalled exactly what was said. So on that front, it seems like he's got a pretty solid recollection of what happened on that day. That's the first point. Second point, the way you also assess these types of claims is, what's the evidence against it? How can we refute anything that was being said? And up to this point, I've not seen any evidence that refutes that Bradley James was in fact a bodyguard for Kelsey, that he was working for her at this time, or that they didn't go eat at this restaurant on this day. I've seen no one making any claim that's actually challenging anything about what he said. It's only people like ABBA that are here saying, well, there's no video or audio recording of what happened, so we can't really trust it. And he took too long to come forward anyway, so we're just going to ignore it. So already 0 for 2 of these arguments. Now, I forgot what point 3 was.
And thirdly, it would be considered hearsay. I get
Okay, hearsay. Let's see what else it says.
that people think this is a big deal. That's fine. But in the court of law, this kind of statement in a lot of places would not be admissible. And even if it was, it really doesn't weigh that much. Because like, bro, you waited multiple years after this whole thing to say this, that you overheard a conversation. That's not going to cut it.
Okay, so that's it. We're moving on to the next point apparently. But I want to stop and talk a little bit about hearsay, because this is a somewhat complicated legal doctrine here. And I understand Abba's not a lawyer, but here you are. You're talking about a legal case and talking about a legal doctrine like hearsay. So allow the lawyer to educate you about what's going on. First things first, what is hearsay? 2 prongs here. Hearsay is an out-of-court statement, so it's something that's not sworn, not under oath. It was made out of court statement. And 2, offered for the truth of the matter asserted. So first things first, we have to determine whether something is actually hearsay. This statement, actually, I would say falls under that definition of hearsay in the fact that it is an out-of-court statement, A, and B, it is offered for the truth, meaning that it is being offered to prove that it was actually Kelsey's the one that did the shooting and not Tory. However, just because something's hearsay does not mean it is inadmissible in court, because there are a bunch of exceptions to the hearsay exclusion, of which one that I'm going to focus on here is it's called the statement against interest exception. Basically, it's saying that whenever a witness makes a statement that's out of court, but the statement is so against their interest, we treat it as a credible statement because there's no reason for them to make a statement like that unless it were true. And this statement here falls squarely within that exception, because there's no reason Kelsey would make a statement about shooting Meg, about her being the one that shot Meg, if not for it being true, especially when you talk about this is in the context of she's talking with her husband and her attorney during the trial about what she should testify to, because she's scared that if she admits to what actually happened, being that she shot Meg, she was going to get prosecuted for it. Which is why, when we got to the trial, she pled the fifth. Her attorney advised her, okay, just plead the fifth then. And that's what she did, pled the fifth. So that's the first note here. This falls under an exception to the hearsay rule, that being the statement against hearsay exception. Second off, we're also not really this isn't really a hearsay question, because Kelsey testified at the trial, and she was a key witness who testified. And as I've said a million times, y'all should know this by now, whenever a witness testifies, their credibility is a question. And you can impeach that credibility with other witnesses that call into question the statements that were made at trial. And so when you've got Kelsey here that is being very wishy-washy about what happened and who shot Meg, in a case where we're trying to figure out who shot Meg, yes, you can call the bodyguard to testify to impeach her credibility, stating that, oh no, she is actually admitted to it. So there's multiple ways that this statement could come into court. And the fact that Abbott is trying to he just says the magic word hearsay. It's hearsay. It doesn't come in, and not do any of the actual legal analysis that's required to determine whether or not the statement does come in. Because I'm arguing there's not one but two different grounds in which the statement could have been admissible in court.
They got Tory apologizing post-incident on 2 different calls. On one call to Kelsey, and then a text message to Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, but he was texting. He was apologizing for what happened, not what happened.
Because we'll play the recordings. We're going to listen to it together, and I want you guys to tell me how this works, okay? So let's take a listen. He's calling from jail. He knows it's recording because it always says it's recording.
This is a free call from
Tory?
an inmate at LAPD jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
Hello?
Hey.
Y'all got out safe and anything. So what?
Let's keep in mind, right, this is a big piece of evidence that Team Meg is using, saying that Tory confessed to the crime. Well, Team Meg's legal team is literally saying that he admitted to shooting her, he confessed. As y'all hear from this recording, he did not confess to shooting Meg. He's simply apologizing for what happened. Now, of course, we can infer what he's talking about when he says what happened. Team Meg, App and Preach, I'm sure, about to make the inference that he has to be apologizing for shooting Meg. I'm making the inference that he's apologizing for the entire situation, because that's how Tory has explained it, saying that he feels bad that he created the situation by sleeping with both of them that led to Meg getting shot. But yeah, let's just listen to the recording.
You're listening to Street
I
TV.
said Megan's in the hospital, so I'm outside the hospital waiting.
What hospital?
Now, keep in mind, this is the woman that Tory was allegedly sleeping with, and he was also sleeping with her best friend, Megan Thee Stallion. Keep in mind, Megan Thee Stallion knew that him and Kelsey were involved to some degree, but she never told her that her and Tory were involved. So they're alleging that this is some kind of love triangle, and that's what started everything. He's calling...
Even the way he just explained that, yeah, this is a complicated, messy, drama-filled love triangle. So it makes sense why, when it gets revealed, the girls who were best friends were fighting, and it led to one of them getting shot.
Her. Don't forget that on the defense stand, while these guys were on trial, they were alleging that she shot Megan the whole time. It wasn't Tory. So now he's calling the very person that he alleges shot Megan. Listen.
Where you at?
I don't know. Feeder, something like that. Feeder.
You know, bro.
Sure.
Regardless, I know she probably never ever gonna talk to me ever again. But, bro, I just want you to know, bro. Nigga, I was just so fucking drunk, nigga. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on, bro. That ass. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on, bro. Like that ass. I never do some shit like that, bro. Just that, nigga, I was just so drunk, nigga. I just didn't even understand what the fuck was going on, bro. Like, so whatever, bro. But you know, regardless, that's not gonna make anything right, and that's not gonna make my actions right, bro. I'm just deeply sorry, bro. I never even moved like that, bro. Like, never moved like that at all, bro. Like for real, dog.
Okay, so I want you guys to just think about what is it in this call. Keep in mind, she's apparently fucking with this guy. She's being messy. He's being messy. She grabs a gun and shoots Megan, and she has to go to jail. She grabs a gun, she shoots Megan, and Tory's the one in jail. He calls her from jail, and he's the only one apologizing. He's the only one. She don't feel bad. Supposedly, she shot Megan. She's chilling. And this dude is like on the verge of crying. He said, I couldn't believe I did that. If it was just cheating, why didn't you ever mention it in the call? If it was just...
Well, okay. I mean, the same goes both ways. You're saying, well, Tory, he's the only one that feels bad here. Well, first off, is that a crime? We're saying that he's supposed to be in trouble here because he actually, first off, tried to disarm the situation, tried to disarm Kelsey, and then it still led to Meg getting shot in a situation that was created by him being messy, sleeping with both of them. But let's remember the disclaimer on the call stating that this call is being recorded. Maybe Kelsey is actually being smart about this and saying, like, yeah, of course I'm not going to admit to it. Who knows who's around her who could be listening from where she's sitting, first off. Second off, she probably is happy that Tory's in jail because he's the one, first off, he created the situation that led to Meg getting shot. But second off, second off, he was cheating on Kelsey with Meg. Third off, by him revealing what had happened, it led to Kelsey getting her ass absolutely destroyed by Meg. Like, she was just getting curb stomped with the types of injuries that were there. So Kelsey's probably happy that the man who led to her getting her butt beat is the one sitting in jail. And then after it all happened and it all died down and calmed down, now she's like, okay, this was not good. This went too far. Now she's at the hospital with Meg. So I think this is all perfectly explainable, but as talking about the night of, but let's keep in mind, Meg and Kelsey, they fell out after this. So whatever happened that night, they were no longer friends moving forward. And the fact, are we going to address that part at all? I don't know. It just seems like they're just assuming that, oh, Tory, he's the only one that feels bad here, therefore he has to be the one that shot her. But I think there's just plenty of other reasons to explain what happened here.
You fucking around with your dick, it just sounded like you was avoiding having to say what had actually happened because you know it was being recorded. But cheating is not a crime.
No. And she's outside the hospital to make it of the person she shot. So she's going to visit the person she shot. Hey, sorry about yesterday, but Tory's in.
So why are they not friends?
Together, Kelsey and Tory?
It's alleged that they were involved. That's what pretty much is like.
Because it's crazy to sleep with someone and call her bruh.
If Meg and Kelsey were just, it's total besties and it's just everything's all Tory's fault and they're all going to blame Tory for everything, then yeah, why are they not friends anymore? Why did they fall out?
Okay.
Yeah, that ass, bro.
You want to get whose brother are you? Okay. We're gonna have a little bit of fun. So I'm reading the transcripts of their conversation in the car because Kelsey 2 months afterwards testified in front of the prosecutor. So she's talking, and this nigga, he's
well,
lit.
hold on. The way he said that, because Kelsey testified in front of the prosecutor. No, that's not what happened. Kelsey sat down for a voluntary interview with prosecutors that was recorded, that was not sworn, that was not under oath, that was not under the penalty of perjury. This is the interview that when she took the stand at trial, she said, that interview, I lied. And in that interview, I lied to protect myself, and what I said was not truthful during that interview. So everything he's about to say here, let's keep a huge grain of salt in mind. What one may call a grain of salt, others may call it reasonable doubt, but to each their own. But yeah, let's keep that in mind, that this interview that he's referencing here is the interview that she admitted that she was lying in it to protect herself.
Okay, he's in the backseat. He's mad. Why? Because they were at Kylie Jenner's place, and basically Megan got mad because this nigga wanted to stay at Kylie Jenner's place because he's trying to fuck her. Okay, so Megan comes in and cox blocks him. So they get back in the vehicle, they start driving off, and they start arguing. And he's like, "Bitch, yo, your wet ass pussy ain't wet," and he's just saying all kinds of crazy things, considering her single. That's wild. Now, this is where it gets crazy. Megan's like, "Hey man, you ain't shit. You short too." She said some crazy shit, and then this nigga goes, "Yo, I should shoot you, bitch," according to Kelsey. And Kelsey said, and then they all, what'd you say? He looks at Kelsey in the backseat because they're both in the backseat. Megan's in the passenger seat. The driver's there, the bodyguard, and he goes, "I'm from Canada." And Kelsey's like, I guess he was insinuating that they're like gangsters or something. I don't know. He said, "I'm from Canada, my nigga. Do you know?" And she's like, "Okay, and my nigga, I'll shoot you." And I'm like, what in maple syrup? These niggas need to chill. So I was so confused, but he really was like, Canada. It don't really make sense to me. I ended up going to look at the text messages he sent to Megan. It had the same energy. So it's like, how is...
Okay, that is a funny story. Like I said, keep in mind the grain of salt. We don't know if any of that's true, but that is actually, that's pretty funny. What in the maple syrup?
The one man who didn't shoot nobody, who ended up in jail, the only one who feels sorry and doesn't feel aggrieved by nobody involved. That don't make sense. And you might want to believe it's about the cheating or whatever it is, but I genuinely think the only way you truly believe that is if you're biased. Within 5 minutes of when the shooting happened, she texted her bodyguard, "Help, Tory shot Meg." 5 minutes of the shooting. Now we go to the gun. And I think this is...
Well, wait. Let's not forget that's the text message that Megan's team was literally caught red-handed photoshopping to include more to make it look worse against Tory. So I guess we're just not referencing that at all.
Also a place where Tory's got a bit of a case because when they did the testing, they had Tory Lanez as DNA expert in the state. And surprisingly, both of them came to the same conclusions when they tested the gun. 1, when they tested the magazine, Tory Lanez's DNA was not on the magazine. 2, GSR was found both on Kelsey Harris and Tory Lanez. 3, and I think this is the part that fucks him a little bit, Tory Lanez's DNA wasn't conclusive for being on the gun, but 90% of the DNA they recovered from the gun itself is male. Why is this important? Only 2 people are alleged to have held onto that gun before the shooting.
For that specific incident, but we have no idea where this gun was before this incident or where it was after this incident. So, yeah, he's saying it's surprising that the DNA experts came to the same conclusion. I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say DNA evidence is pretty solid. I'm not surprised one bit that both experts got the same conclusion. I would point out it is interesting. It seems like he's kind of looking at this backwards because remember, the standard in the criminal law is you have to prove someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They are innocent until proven guilty. What he's doing here, it seems to be like he's flipping it. He's saying he's guilty until he's proven innocent. And he even made a comment earlier about with Tory's and his team's access to the gun. They're stating that they were unable to prove his innocence because they didn't have access to the gun. But that's not the standard. He doesn't have to prove himself innocent. The state has to prove that he's guilty. But here by looking at the DNA evidence here, it seems like he's kind of making the argument that Tory had to prove his innocence through the DNA. But that's just not how it works. The state had to prove that he shot the gun, and a huge way they can do that is by proving his DNA was on the gun. But guess what? The state was not able to prove his DNA was on the gun. In fact, it was able to exclude his DNA from the magazine, and like you said, it was inconclusive as to whether or not his DNA was on the gun itself. But guess what? There were 2 female DNA profiles on the gun, as well as gunshot residue on Kelsey's hand, and her DNA was never taken to be tested. We'll talk about reasonable doubt in a rush to judgment investigation. That's it right there.
One is a female, one is a male. 90% of the DNA that is on the gun itself belongs to a male. Both the defense and the prosecution's DNA experts said they can't exclude or include Tory Lanez's DNA. It is inconclusive. That means that a woman didn't fire the gun like they're claiming. Again, this is interesting. Another thing.
Well, no, we don't know that. We can't know that definitionally because the DNA was inconclusive. So, yeah, without the burden is on the state. And I'm getting worked up about this because in my work, it is such a heavy burden on me to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I wish I could have jurors like this in my cases, because if they can look at someone and think, oh, the defendant has to prove himself innocent, and if he doesn't do that, then I'm going to find him guilty. Oh, that'd be an awesome juror for me to have. But when we're talking about a case that none of us are involved in, we have to keep the proper legal standard in mind.
It's not a smoking gun because, again, it's not his DNA. But what it does show is it points to him. Another thing that counts against him.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't point to him. It definitionally cannot point to him because it was inconclusive. It was excluded on one part of the gun, inconclusive on the other part. Standard is innocent until proven guilty. And so the fact they cannot prove his DNA goes towards finding him not guilty.
When the police came by and they located the firearm, where did they find it? They find it right where Tory Lanez himself claimed he was sitting. I get that people are big fans of his. I get that people think he was railroaded or whatever. But I'm being honest with you. If you objectively just look at the evidence presented, right? You look at how the defense team is not presenting this website, how dishonest the medical reports is. It's just like, I can't take it seriously. But yeah, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, you asked me what I thought about it, and I told you that I don't know anymore. Because cross-reference, it's like, I'm looking at their facts, they could be lying. You have to cross-reference what happened in court, and you're like, were people bought? Possible? Not likely. That many people? Why would they want him inside? It spikes a lot more questions that I have. And my fair answer, my honest answer that I can give you after what I saw is, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think you, like many other people, don't know.
So, okay, if your conclusion after hearing all of this is, oh, I don't really know what happened, well, then guess what? Your duty as a juror, put yourself in the jury box right here. If you're saying, I don't know what happened, then how are you finding someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? You've got no doubt in your mind that Tory intentionally shot Meg. How can you find him guilty of that crime if you're saying, well, I don't know? So, and this is the only point that I'm making here. This is the reason I'm Team Tory. It's not because I believe Tory is 100% definitively proven innocent through any of this. I just think there's way more than enough reasonable doubt to have found him not guilty of the crime. Did he do it? Honestly, I don't know. Which puts me in the same boat as Preacher, because there is a lot of conflicting evidence going both ways. But in a case where it is just a bunch of conflicting evidence and you can't know what happened, you have to find someone not guilty. And that's why I'm Team Tory here, because if I think he's not guilty, I think he should have been found not guilty. But the fact he was found guilty and got 10 years and got stabbed, like, this is the case for his pardon. If you don't know what happened, then call for him to be pardoned.
No, because you just didn't research it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to.
You're rehashing something that was already like a case closed, but let's see what you found.
No, go through all your thoughts.
That's pretty much what I have. I don't understand like that. I feel like what they brought so far is not like a, oh my God, I can see it now. He should be freed. I'm still on the original stance. Like, I want to believe what you're saying because you sound so convincing. But from what I've seen, it's a no for me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't researched this thing enough.
How are you saying How are you saying that? How are you saying simultaneously, I don't know, but also it's a no from me? Like, no, those are mutually exclusive points to have. You cannot say, I don't know, so I'm going to find him guilty. But maybe it's because maybe in Canada they have a different legal system. I think they're Canadian, right? So maybe they got a different legal system here. But we're talking about American law, good old-fashioned red-blooded America right here. And the standard here is innocent until proven guilty.
But I'm like, you guys didn't put out anything that was not said or not reviewed before or not. But I'm willing to listen. You're more patient than I am.
Go for it.
Because the minute that I read that nothing new was...
And they painted it that way, didn't they?
What?
That it was new shit.
Yes, that's what they've been saying. There's a governor or whatever from California that's saying, oh, this new evidence is gonna... And it's not new. There's nothing new. Yeah. Like, the minute I understood and I read that it was nothing new, I'm saying, so I'm about to read a trial that was already tried.
Yep.
I got my high school diploma and I'm gonna be able to debunk what they did in court? No. Anyways, people are going to try to... I think it's really trying to push a reason. You're saying no, but I think they try to put a doubt and that people, people started bandwagon and then there's pressure and then they're able to run that shit back, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, man, listen, get yourself a Trump hat, pray. You know what I mean? Do what you got to do. But for all the people watching, saying, Abba, you're biased or whatever, don't listen to me, bro. I'll put the links in the description. You can go read the affidavits. You can go read the exhibits. You can go read the witness testimony. No, it's just like people keep bringing it up.
Well, yeah, you did, but you also left out all the holes in Megan's side of the case. You really only focused on the bad stuff that went against Tory, which look, for the first third of the video, I was basically agreeing with you that there's not a lot of arguments to be had there, but there's tons of arguments to be had against Meg, but you didn't raise any of them. So you want to talk about it's just your bias that's showing. Well, maybe that's what's showing for me, but it's also showing for you. And look, I'm also trying to just be as fair as possible. And I do think Abba is he's being way more fair than Fantano in the last video. So I'll give him credit for that, but I still think he's leaving out a lot of juicy details that really should be addressed if you're truly trying to be unbiased and neutral on this case.
And even people I know, it's like, Guys, y'all got to read up on this shit because a lot of people on YouTube just be yapping and not knowing any of the details. I had to watch Flacco and a bunch of other fucking dumb YouTubers cover this shit, and they were saying that Megan lied when she talked to the police. Yes, they covered that in court. She lied because she's claiming she was covered for him. What does the medical report say? I think you motherfuckers want Tory to be innocent. Me personally, I don't listen to Megan. I don't listen to this motherfucker. I don't care if they stay in jail.
Yeah.
Free Kelly.
Oh no.
Go.
Not for Kelly.
Megan's biggest mistake was trying to protect the man who shot at her. And after the fact, people are now still shaming her for not standing with the man who shot at her.
I don't think, no, that's not what's happening at all. It's honestly, I don't think Meg knows what happened. I think she knows she was beating Kelsey, and then Jaquan Smith was pulling her away, and the next thing you know, there were gunshots, and we don't know who exactly shot. So to say that her biggest mistake was not standing with a man who shot her, no, I don't think that's a fair statement at all. And you could say on the flip side, the biggest mistake Tory made in this was feeling bad for the situation and calling Kelsey and apologizing and texting Meg to apologize. Like, are we going to hold that against him because he tried to do the right thing and apologize for what happened? But you're going to hold that against him and say, aha, see, he shot her. No, that's not a fair characterization, I think, at all.
You can feel however you want about it, but I'm so sick of people having that expectation. Oh, free this person. What did he do? Killed 3 people. Fuck him. Stay in jail. I'm so sick of these people being allowed to stay in our communities and doing whatever the fuck they want. You're also Canadian. What are you doing in America with a gun? This dude to me is no different than Vitaly. He's no different than Johnny Somali. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Can we please stop protecting people who hurt us and our communities? Take that. Baby, tell me if you lie.
Okay, I mean, how about this? Compromise. Makes everybody happy. First part, Tory gets pardoned, gets out of jail, makes Team Tory happy. Second, deport him back to Canada. We don't want him here anymore. How about that? Can we agree on that? Let's try and find some middle ground. That's something we can all agree on. And it's not about playing stupid games, winning stupid prizes, and it's also not about just freeing someone who did some heinous things. Like, there's plenty of people in jail that I see the Twitter campaigns to, oh, free this guy, free that guy. And it's like, no, absolutely not. They deserve to stay in jail. In fact, that's the majority of these cases, is these people deserve to be in jail. And like, that's me. I'm a prosecutor. I believe in putting bad guys in jail. But this is not one of those cases. This is a case that was riddled with reasonable doubt, that the prosecutors manipulated the truth and put the blinders on the jury and got them to solely focus on Meg as a sympathetic victim and use that to fuel this bias and prejudice towards Tory to the point where they found him guilty for a crime that we can't say beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed. So yeah, though, that is my video on the Aberrant Preach video about Tory Lanez. Interesting stuff, a lot of interesting stuff in there. I think Abba is a lot better of an actor, a lot more good faith going on here than what was going on with Fantano by far. But still, I think a lot that he was missing. But I'd be curious if he'd want to have a conversation about some of these holes. I understand, once again, it's one of these, I'm tiny, I'm still growing, which, right, once again, thank you all for 1,000 subscribers. That's a huge deal. That's the first of many milestones to be had. But hopefully, who knows, maybe Abba would want to talk to this. So if y'all want to see me and Abba talk about it, then maybe we can make it happen. I have no idea how to even reach him, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, if you like this video and like this content covering the Meg and Tory case, then be sure to drop a like down below to let me know to make more. And if you like this kind of content covering big cases, these high-profile cases, then subscribe to come back for more. And of course, let me know down in the comments what y'all think about this video, what y'all think about what Abba had to say. And yeah, definitely let me know if you want to see me try and get in touch with Abba to see if we can have a discussion/debate about this case, because I think that'd be really interesting. But yeah, last but not least, once again, thank you so much for the 1,000 subscribers. It really means the world to me. I'm so happy that y'all are here and you like this kind of content. I love talking with y'all down in the comments. So I hope y'all stick around. We're trying to build something special here, make a fun community built on truth, built on justice, built on the law. And so far, so good. So definitely looking forward to all the things that we're going to be able to accomplish together. That is all for today's video. So I will see you all on the next one.